All right, guys, I am super excited. I finally got my boom arm in the mail today. So, this is the first podcast episode where I don't actually have to hold my mic. And I'm so excited. I am so excited because now I can have it near my face. And with me being on the spectrum, and stimming a lot, I am naturally a hand talker. So now I can actually talk with my hands. So now I feel even less anxious and suppressed because now I can actually move myself around a little bit more when I'm talking. So I'm just so excited. I am a little upset that it got delayed a couple days. I was actually supposed to get this I believe New Year's Eve. And instead it got delayed a couple days because it arrived in my town at the morning of midnight, but they never got around to processing it. So it just sat for basically 2 days, and then I just got it today. Literally about 2 hours ago, 2.5 hours ago. So I got it all set up. And unfortunately, it was way too big. So thankfully, it is adjustable. So the second part of the boom arm, I'm actually just using it as one single piece instead of it being two separate pieces like it's supposed to be. Just because I realized I didn't have enough room. So I was like, okay, but. Yeah, so with that out of the way, welcome to this week's episode of Divergence and Divine. My name is WIllspiration, and I'm just too I'm sorry. I am just too excited about having the boom arm right now. I just am but today I kind of want to talk about just kind of, I don't know, maybe do a little more motivational talking. Just because for me recently, I've kind of been going through and helping out online, on subreddits and stuff like that. And the more stuff that I see, the more I'm just kind of oh, this wouldn't be bad to talk about. But I think this is just kind of going to be a little more general. I think kind of appealed to everyone, neurodivergent or not. But I think the biggest thing that I want to start off with is the one thing that I've noticed is when people feel like they aren't going anywhere, or they just kind of feel like things aren't lining up. And the thing is that from my experience, I've learned that I just have to have patience, which I know because in the past, me being me would have been patience. I don't need to have patience. I want stuff to happen now. I am back when I got diagnosed when I was 27 with autism, right? I was just by the time I was 28, I was just I'm 28. Everything should have happened to me already. I should be married. I should have kids. I should have a pet. I should have a house. I should have, I should have what everyone else my age has. And then when I stopped to think about it, it's just kind of the more I focused on wanting stuff and wanting to be like everyone else, the more I kind of realized I kind of stifled my own growth. So I think the best thing is to kind of realize that essentially social norms are basically essentially social standards. For instance, you have to go to college. You have to get a bachelor's degree in something. You have to work a 9 to 5. You have to drive. What's another one? Oh, you have to, be married before you're 30. You have to have kids. You have to have your first kid by the time you're 26, and just finishing up a master's degree, should you choose to go for a master's degree, right? So somewhere between like 25 and 27, you should have your first kid. You should have a house by the time you're, also around the time you're 26. Let's see, what are other standards that we have? Yes, I got another one. One that kind of bothered me, being on the spectrum, was just like, being buff. Like if you're male, that stereotype of every guy's got to be all muscle, otherwise he's not attractive, is another one. Or like women, having a curvy figure and, having, certain parts that men like to look at, be a certain size, is another example. Or like what I would equate to guys being muscular in order to be attractive. And then there's just kind of essentially just doing normal things. Like, for example, maybe going out to the bar on, like every weekend at the end of the work week or something. Or even like in college, like going to parties every Friday or every, weekend whenever you have time off. Like, there are so many social norms that, like, as an autistic person, like, you just don't feel like you fit, right? And even just from like the neurotypical standpoint, there are even some neurotypicals that are just like, they don't feel like they fit that social norm, because it's just like, why am I going to do something that's bad for me? Like, there's just common sense. For me, I honestly say you just do whatever feels comfortable for you. Whether that's a certain hairstyle, dressing a certain way. If you wanna work out to, just for the sake of feeling good, physically, because, exercising is good for you, it is healthy. But like doing it for health purposes, not to like bulk up and be like, oh, look at me, like I got muscle, to show off, then, that's perfectly fine too. If you don't feel like you're good at school and you don't want to go to college, you can always get a trade. There's so many things that like you can do that basically won't make you feel like you have to follow the status quo. Because honestly, I'm just gonna say this, and it is gonna be edited in the video. You guys will know what I mean, especially if you guys know me. Anyone that's watching, you'll know what I mean. But basically, in my opinion, I say fuck the status quo. Honestly, like, regardless of whether you're neurodivergent or neurotypical, fuck the status quo, okay? It's pointless, and it's basically, in my honest opinion, designed to take away our sense of individuality, authenticity, and just basically being genuine and true to ourselves. Because yes, we are humans, but just like how we all look different from each other, we also have our own unique personalities, and we all have our own interests and, hobbies and things like that. So why am I going to try to be like somebody else because, oh, well, this is normal? Now, I understand that from a certain perspective, there are certain things that should be normalized, like certain social etiquettes, like please and thank you, and, asking how somebody's doing and things like that. But when it comes to doing things in terms of like going out and having interests and hobbies and dressing a certain way and, looking a certain way, I completely say, fuck all that shit. Just fuck it. Don't even worry about it. Like, just do you. As far as like socializing norms go, that's kind of where I am a little bit like, okay. There are certain things that I feel like are very valid in terms of social norms. But there's also my thought is like, I also don't like that like people that are neurodivergent, especially people on the spectrum, are expected to follow a social norm when we kind of like socialize differently. And I'll give you guys an example. It's like whenever I talk to my dad, and my dad is like, me and my dad are talking, and I'm kind of just telling him about my life, and then my dad interjects with, "Oh yeah, me and your stepmom are doing fine. Thanks for asking." And I'm just like, "But I was telling you about what's been going on. I was gonna ask you after I got done telling you about what's been going on with me. I was gonna ask you how things have been going with you." And I feel like for for a lot of us that are on the spectrum and neurodivergent as a whole, it's just kind of like that's how you want to start off a conversation. Like it's just normal to kind of start off and be like, "Hey, how are you?" Like, and that person says, "Good, how are you?" And you go, "Oh, I'm good." And then open up with like a little opener, like, just been busy doing things. Like, for example, if I was talking to someone, I'd be like, "I'm good. I finally got my boom arm in the mail. So I just recorded my 7th episode of my podcast, and it was nice to actually be able to use my arms to talk." And then when the person responds, and they gauge a little interest, then you kind of respond back. So like if the person's like, "Oh, so how's that working out for you?" And it's like, it's good. It's still early. I'm kind of just a nobody on YouTube. So it's like, I'm not really expecting a lot of views or anything, but it's going pretty well, in my opinion, considering. And the boom arm is great. And then after that, it's just like, then I'll go like, "How about you? Like anything new with you? Have you done, any adventures or stories?" And then they might go, "Yeah, it's just same old, same old." Or that person might go, "Oh, actually, this happened to me." And it's just kind of like, and then that person talks about it. You kind of ask questions about it. And then it's just kind of like, it goes back and forth. But like with with neurodivergent people, you just kind of go on and on until you get tired of talking to something about something. And then you like ask that person, like, what's new with them. And then they kind of go on and on and on until they get bored of talking about that. And then you guys kind of just start talking from there and then switching topics. And then, it's just, I think it's because we info dump a lot that kind of makes that like, oh, okay, I'm just going to kind of keep talking because I love talking. And then like, especially people on the spectrum, like, that info dumping is a thing. So like, you just kind of info dump anyway. So like, you guys info dump back and forth when you're catching up. And then like, when you're talking about things, you kind of just jump around from topic to topic for whatever crosses your mind. If you're ADHD, or if you have both autism and ADHD like me, and you're talking to someone that's also has autism and ADHD, then, you get kind of used to topics just jumping around. Like you'll info dump about some like one topic and then like jump to a different topic. And it just, you just get so used to that way of talking that like that more structured, linear communication that neurotypicals have isn't exactly normal. Like it doesn't feel right. Like you don't feel like it, like you can communicate properly because now you gotta like get all your ducks in a row. And it's just kind of like, but you have to get those ducks in a row as you're talking. So it's like, oh, okay, this is, this is a little bit harder. I mean, obviously if you are like closer with people or like, you have understanding, like coworkers or acquaintances or friends, like they kind of understand that you're already, you socialize a little bit differently. So they're a little more patient, but people that don't know you as well are probably not going to have patience with you. And that's fine because, at the end, it doesn't really matter because the way I see it is if people don't have patience with you, they're not really worth your time. Especially if they go and say like, "Look, I don't care. Like, just get to the point." And it's just kind of like, I didn't know there was a point to this conversation. I thought we were just conversing and having, and, shooting the breeze and, just chilling. I didn't know there was an actual point. So I think, honestly, it's just kind of learning to be more of yourself, and just accepting the fact that, you communicate a little bit differently. If you're able to, I would say that if you can, if you can train your brain to do it, you can learn how to bridge that gap between neurotypical and neurodivergent communication. So it kind of makes it a little bit easier from there. But I think, honestly, just being yourself, and I've seen this a lot. I've seen this a lot on Reddit where people are like, but being myself has gotten me picked on, bullied, beat up, used, assaulted, etc. And it's just kind of like, for me, I don't really have an answer at this time for that. It's just kind of the only thing that I would say is be yourself, but also be very conscious of the people around you, because there are people that are going to lie to you and that literally just want to use you. And then there are people that genuinely will want to get to know you and understand you. And then there are just people that are kind of, crazy, that want to do bad things to people. Whether it's because they're sick in the head or because they're bitter about something. So they want to make everyone feel bitter so that way they have, somebody to be bitter with. But honestly, I think it's just kind of learning from past mistakes. Because if there's one thing that people on the spectrum are good at, is recognizing patterns. And for me, I recognize patterns all the time. And because of the ADHD, sometimes I forget them. I mean, they're still in my head. They're just kind of they get buried. It's like when you lose something in your house, you set it aside and then you do a little cleaning and then you're like, I don't remember where I put that. And then months later, when you don't really need it at that time, you find what you're looking for and you're like, oh, okay, well now I know where I put it. It's like that. It's that stuff is in there. But I've always noticed patterns with my anxiety, especially with my hypochondria. I know patterns that I do. I know, certain things. And then I always got to remind myself hey, as someone on the spectrum, you are prone to gastrointestinal problems. You are prone to, pain and discomfort when you're anxious, even in your muscles, even in your nervous system. Sometimes your nerves will misfire and it feels like you just got burned by hot water, even though nothing hot has touched you. And then you have IBS. And then on top of the fact that anxiety just physically stresses your body out and causes very similar symptoms already. So a lot of what you're feeling is literally just muscle tightness and even muscle cramps and even muscle knots. And, you're going to feel sore and maybe a little bruised when those knots undo themselves. And, you're going to be fine when your body rests up, but you're good. You just got to take a deep breath and stay calm and just kind of remember that your body is just doing bodily things. So that's an example of finding a pattern and stuff. So if you look past at your past mistakes and you look at what you've done and you go, oh, okay, I was too trusting. Or, oh, okay, this is the pattern of people that have used me, etc., etc. Then you kind of start to learn how to look for those details in people and be like, if I'm going to trust you, it's only going to be barely, because I want to make sure that if I'm wrong, I can be prepared for, something, whatever that something may be. And then I'm going to throw in a little bit of, the divine aspect. So I'm going to bring in a little bit of metaphysical into this. But another thing is I saw on TikTok that someone that was autistic was saying how they believe that autism is an evolution of the human race, we're leveling up, and that there are a lot of autistics that seem to have metaphysical and spiritual abilities like clairvoyance, clairaudience, clairsentience, being able to see auras, being able to kind of just know what someone's thinking just by looking in their eyes. that kind of stuff, which I'm just going to get this out of the way right now. From the metaphysical and spiritual standpoint, every human is able to do it. Like, that's just something that humans have always been able to do. But I feel like it's easier for neurodivergent people to hold on to that, because I don't know what it is, but it just kind of seems like that sticks with us more. Because if you look at a baby, right? You look at a baby, and, when the baby's being held by the mother, the baby, learns to, calm down and just kind of, be like, love that maternal instinct. But if somebody holds a baby and you're like nervous to hold the baby, and you're just like really anxious, like, oh man, this is a little, like, I want to make sure I'm holding the baby right, make sure I'm supporting the neck, I don't want to drop the baby. Like, oh my God, this is so stressful. Like, how do I hold this precious little life in my arms without like hurting it? Like, they're so delicate, and you go to hold the baby's going to feel that anxiety, and that baby's going to start crying. Like, that baby is going to be like wailing, because that baby senses your anxiety, and it's very overwhelming for them, and they don't like that feeling. So they cry because they want to go back and be held by the mother, because the mother makes them feel calm and at peace. And as we get older, we kind of are taught, social norms, and, be yourself, but don't be too much of yourself. You want to make sure you fit into society to some extent. And then we kind of lose those gifts because we're too focused on the physical plane and existing in the physical world, that we kind of forget the metaphysical abilities that we're naturally born with. And for neurodivergent people, it seems like it's easier to kind of learn how to tap back into that than it is for neurotypical people. And the reason why I bring this up is because, like, I understand that not everyone here believes in metaphysics and spiritualism. A lot of people are religious. I know that there's religions would call that like witchcraft or occultish things, and, like, you're going to hell. But I mean, there has been evidence that certain books have been removed from the Bible that mention metaphysics, and that it's entirely possible that the reason why a lot of, the people that have books written after them in the Bible are, have their stories told, is because of the fact that they had metaphysical gifts and didn't know it. And, people believe that it was God channeling them. But what if it's actually that everybody has a connection to God, and everybody has that ability to connect with the divine like that? So there's like other ways of looking at it, because like I myself, I do believe that God exists, but I also do believe in metaphysical and spiritual abilities. Like, I believe we have a creator, and I believe because we have the breath of life from God, that in some ways we do have some special abilities. It's just we don't learn how to fully utilize them. And I'm not talking like superpowers, like, oh, I can levitate, I can float, I can fly, I can shoot lasers out of my eyes. I'm talking like basically being able to essentially read people. I know for me, I'm still not really good at reading people. I'm more so good at feeling people's emotions through their energy and their auric field, like basically their vibrations, or what most people often refer to as vibes. And I can't remember if I've mentioned this before, but I'm just going to mention it again if I have. But there's a difference between when people say vibe and actually being able to feel people's energy vibrations. Vibe is what you get when you look at a person based on how they look, how they present themselves, how they dress, versus actual real vibrations, which is, okay, when I'm in this person's, energy and their presence, how does it make me feel? Like, what do I feel? Do I feel calm? Do I feel a little nervous? Do I feel intimidated? Do I feel calm? Do I feel happy? That kind of really helps you gauge like what it's like to be around somebody. Like, if you're around someone, and even if they have like the most chill, calm looking face, like, you're like, oh, they look like they're a really nice person. But if you kind of spend time around them, and the more you spend time around their energy, you go, okay, they look nice, they're acting nice, but why do I feel a little uncomfortable? Like, why do I feel a little anxious around them? Like, why do I feel like something's off? Then you kind of go, maybe there is something off about this person. And then sometimes, that might be your anxiety talking too. So like, that person might just be having an off day, and you're just kind of anxious. So your anxiety is kind of like making you think that there's something wrong, but it's not. But generally speaking, it's kind of like, if being around someone makes you feel a certain way, chances are, yeah, there is something off about that person. Because when people like that I know, that I work with, and that I'm friends with, they always tell me that I have a very, like, I'm very calm. Like, I have just like I have good energy. Like, they don't feel uncomfortable around me. They know that, they feel generally safe with me, and, they like being around me because of my energy. It's like, okay, that's how you can tell that, like, I'm a good person, because I seem like that's just how I am. Like, because I'm me. I'm genuine to myself. I don't hide who I am. I don't go, and just pretend to be someone that I'm not. Now, even at work, like, because having to be professional, and I think I said this either in the previous episode or 2 episodes ago, but like, even being professional is a form of masking. So even neurotypicals have to mask to some extent, because you have to adhere to, company policies, right? But they don't have to mask to the extent that we do. So for me, I've just kind of learned to essentially think of masking as being professional, right? So when I mask at work, I'm masking to be professional, which means, toning down some of the things that I do that are stimming and autism and ADHD related, but not to the point where I completely suppress it. Like, I still stim. I still kind of, pace around and stuff, and, kind of occasionally do the verbal stim here and there. Not as much as I do when I'm, here at home, but enough where I can, not be as mentally exhausted from work, because now I'm just masking to be professional. I'm not masking to mask myself, right? To hide my autism, essentially. And that's kind of I think, like, the biggest thing is, like, knowing that you can be yourself. And, like, for me, doing that also kind of makes it easier to kind of tap into those metaphysical and spiritual gifts that we all have. So it makes it easier for me to be able to read people. So, like, for example, a lot of the people on, like, that are on my shift at work are really chill people. There are a couple people where I'm kind of like, I might be a little like, I'm not sure. Not in a bad way, like, like they're bad people or anything. It's just, there's just certain things about, like, maybe there's like certain parts of their personality that I don't exactly jive with, but like, they're still professional, and they still, are respectable and everything. So I'm like, okay, that's fine, and then just kind of, learning that, as long as you don't get like that really, really bad feeling from somebody, that, generally speaking, there might be some disagreements here and there, but otherwise it's like, you don't stir the pot, you're good. But I think that's kind of something that has helped me a lot in terms of socializing too, is just kind of leaning into those metaphysical gifts and kind of learning, okay, how do I feel around this person? And if this person is anxious, how can I help calm them down? And that's kind of helped a lot, because when people do get kind of flustered or something's going on, then it's like, how do I help calm them down? How do I kind of help heal them in that moment so they can calm down and kind of be like, oh, I feel better now. I know that my first full week on my new shift, I ran into one of my trainees from when I was on my previous shift as an onboarding trainer. And, young lady, early 20s, and she was crying. And I asked her what was wrong, and she was telling me that another packer was giving her problems, and she didn't know what to do, and she wanted to go home, but she knows that she can't go home because, of the point system and everything. So I just told her, I said, well, it sounds like you really need to talk to somebody, because especially if this has been going on for a while, like, you can't just sit here and take it. Like, I know it's scary, and I know that it's, to like stand up for yourself, but if standing up for yourself isn't working, like, you have to let somebody know, like, hey, this person won't leave me alone. They're making fun of me for X, Y, and Z. I've asked them to stop. They haven't stopped. And, I've asked a couple other people that are above me position wise if they could say something. They've said stuff, and she, like, he or she has not stopped, and it doesn't make me feel good about myself and makes me feel uncomfortable. And then after telling her that, I said, you really need to, like, talk to your team lead or talk to a supervisor about this, because, it sounds like this has been getting out of hand. And then she looked at me, and then I told her that, and then I said, so why don't you go, do that, and then, let me know how things go if I see you again. Otherwise, I hope things, go better, and I hope your day gets better. And then I was waiting for my, I was waiting for some more work. So I was just doing some things around the plant, and then I ran into my former team lead. She was talking to the person, and they were like, okay, well, let's go, have a talk with HR, let them know what's going on so that they can talk to this person. And then I was like, well, that makes me feel better, because, like, just because she actually said something, and her, like, the team lead actually went about and, did the right thing. And it's funny because said trainee's team lead was also a trainee that I had my very first group when I was shadowing to become an onboarding trainer. So I it's kind of cool. But it was just nice to see. And then I ran into her later, and she said that, she talked to, HR, and that they were going to handle the situation from there. And I said, good, I'm glad that you said something, because, it's not right for somebody to give you a hard time, and, regardless of the reason, and it should have been dealt with sooner. But I'm just glad that your team lead, actually did something about it, instead of, kind of being like, oh, I'm just going to talk to this person, and then be like, okay, I talked to this person, they should stop. If they don't stop, let me or the supervisor know, and we'll talk to the person again. Because honestly, sometimes people they're not going to stop. And by law, unless it is something that gets really out of hand, or is a threat to that person themselves, or they're threatening other people or the company, generally speaking, everything has to stay confidential between you and the superior that you're talking to. It's not the same with HR. If you go to HR to talk to them about something, they have to let them know. Like, the person that you're talking to them about, they have to let them know that, you said something, because you can't just go and say that, oh, this person is talking about me and I don't like it, and I've told them to stop and they're not stopping. Because how are they supposed to fix the situation if you don't want them to let the other person know? And is that other person going to, talk crap about you behind your back? Absolutely. They're going to. Because they're mad because they got caught. So just remember that, people that talk bad about others, when they get caught and they get reprimanded, they are going to be bitter and spiteful towards you. But that's okay, because that's not your problem. They have to learn the hard way that if they're going to keep picking on people and talking bad about them, it's eventually going to bite them and could eventually lead to them getting terminated. So they need to, realize that. But it's the same thing in life too. Like if somebody starts talking, crap about you and they say that they're your friend, 9 times out of 10, they never were your friend. They just saw you as an easy target, as somebody that would do things for them. And then once you kind of start sticking up for yourself, they're going to guilt trip you because you're not easy to be taken, you're not easily taken advantage of anymore. So just remember that it's always okay, to say no to like helping people. Like if you notice that a certain quote unquote friend is always asking for help a lot and you feel like it's getting suspicious, you can say, no, I've helped you plenty of times. This is a little odd. So I'm not I don't want to help them. So you just go, I would, but I'm busy, with something, or, I have a family emergency that came up, or, I have to take someone's spot at work last minute. I'm sorry, that kind of thing. But I think that's pretty much going to be it for this episode. I'm surprised at how fast the time went, because it literally felt like I was only talking for like 15 minutes, but it's been like almost 40. So I'm going to wrap up this episode. As always, I hope you guys enjoyed. I hope this has helped you out some way. Make sure you like and subscribe. Hit the notification bell so that you guys get alerted to when I upload a new episode. And yeah, just remember to be your true, authentic, genuine self and learn to, stand up and be proud of yourself. And with that, I will see you guys next week. Bye-bye.